Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with chicken noodle salad. That's right, I think I'm going to start a new tradition where every summer I post a new cold noodle salad, since these things really are one of the ultimate hot weather foods. Okay, we're talking light, cold, and refreshing, yet still very delicious and satisfying. Not to mention fun to eat. Plus, they make a great change of pace from the usual pasta salads in the summer. And by the way, if you're watching this in the middle of winter, you should make this anyway. It's really good. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with our dressing, which will begin with some finely crushed or minced garlic, to which we will add a whole bunch of rice vinegar to take care of the sour part of the flavor profile. And then for the salty part, we'll take care of that with some soy sauce, as well as some Asian fish sauce, which, as we like to remind people, tastes 100 times better than it smells. And then to balance our sour and salty, we will add a little bit of sweet in the form of brown sugar. And then, of course, if we're going to have some sweet, we also want some heat. So I'm going to squirt in a generous amount of hot sauce, sriracha to be exact, which is basically going to serve as sort of a liquid cayenne. And then we'll go ahead and finish up with a little bit of hoisin sauce, as well as, last but not least, a little drizzle of sesame oil. And that's it. We'll take a whisk and give this a mix. And once everything's combined, our very simple dressing is done. And of course, give it a taste if you want. But it's hard to adjust dressings until they're on the thing you're going to dress. But anyway, that's it. Once mixed, we'll just set that aside while we move on to prep our chicken. And for this recipe, you're going to need some kind of cooked chicken meat, which for me is a couple perfectly poached breasts. And somewhere in the post, I will provide a link for a video that shows you how to do that. Although generally, when we're making a dish like this, it's because we already have some leftover chicken. But I did cook these fresh for the video. Oh, and those already roasted rotisserie chickens from the market also works very nicely for this. But regardless of exactly what chicken you're using, we do want to make sure we tear this up in fairly small strands. Okay, one of the secrets of a great noodle salad is your other ingredients having a similar width to your noodles. And why that is going to be fairly obvious when we mix this up and eat it. So I went ahead and shredded up one of these large breasts and decided that was plenty. So I will save the other one for something else. And by something else, I probably mean an apple and chicken salad sandwich on toast. But we'll see. It depends on my mood. But anyway, once that's set, we'll go ahead and refrigerate it until needed. And we'll move on to cooking our noodles. In, of course, a whole bunch of well-salted boiling water. And today I'll be using a thin spaghetti. And believe it or not, cooking it all the way. All right, one of the great all-time myths of these recipes is that you have to undercook your noodles, which is absolutely not true and wrong. And don't get me wrong, I don't want it overcooked, but I do not want it extra al dente. And then once that stuff's cooked for the normal amount of time, we're going to do something we almost never do. And that is drain and rinse the pasta in cold water. But for this type of salad, it is necessary. And we don't need to spray this until it's ice cold. And it's actually okay if it's still a little bit warm, but we do want to quickly stop that cooking process as well as rinse off a little bit of starch. So we'll rinse that in cold water for about 20 seconds. And then let it drain and add it to a big mixing bowl. At which point we will move into final production, which means tossing in our freshly shredded chicken, as well as whatever finely sliced or julienne vegetables we're going to add. And in my case, that's going to be some carrots. And if you're wondering how I got them so perfect and small, let's go ahead and do a little Food Wishes flashback to about a half hour before this. And the easiest way to do these is with one of these cheap Japanese vegetable slicers, also known as a mandolin. And while these are relatively cheap, something that's not is a trip to the hospital, which is why one of these cut-proof gloves is a good idea, since the guards can be kind of awkward to use. Oh, and if you want, you could just use a regular grater or a potato peeler. But anyway, that's how I did it. And we can now return to our regularly scheduled programming. And then to the carrots, I will also add some very thinly sliced red bell pepper, as well as some freshly and thinly sliced green onion. And then we will go ahead and pour in our dressing, followed by a very, very thorough mixing. And two things you need to know here. First of all, this is going to take you a couple minutes to mix properly, so take your time and don't be in a hurry. And the second thing is there's no tool that will work for this as good as your bare hands. So make sure they're clean, and then get in there and get in there deep. And mix that until you are 100% confident everything's been well combined. At which point we're going to wrap this and pop it into the fridge for a minimum of 2 hours. Or as long as overnight. All right, we have to give this time for the noodles and chicken to absorb all that dressing. Oh, and it's not a bad idea if during that chilling time you give it a toss once in a while, so that the noodles at the bottom aren't getting all the goodness, which I did twice, while my salad was in the fridge for about 4 hours. After which we can pull it out, unwrap it, and proceed to add the last two components. The first of which would be a whole bunch of chopped roasted salted peanuts, which is going to provide some extra richness and crunch, as well as we will add 1 ton of fresh herbs. And I'm going with the holy trinity of Asian noodle salad herbs, which means basil, mint, and cilantro. And by the way, these herbs are not just some sort of garnish. They are an integral part of the recipe, and it's just not going to be the same without them. So we really do want to use a lot. And that's it. Once we give this one last tossing, it is ready to eat, assuming we've tasted it and adjusted if needed. Okay, if you think it needs more of something, go ahead and toss it in. I mean, you are, after all, the Gordon Getty of your cold chicken and spaghetti. And you are the composer here. So if it needs a little more heat, or a little more soy, or maybe another splash of rice vinegar, go ahead and add it in. But I'm very happy to report mine was tasting perfect. And I really can't tell you how much I love this salad. Right, I could have stood there and ate most of this bowl. I mean, the flavors are so big and bold and vibrant, and yet it comes in this beautifully light, refreshing, cold delivery system. I mean, it really is hard to stop eating. Although I did, long enough to put some in a bowl so I could take a few pictures. And then, of course, I resumed eating. And above and beyond the amazing taste, temperature, and textures, by cutting and shredding our other ingredients, nice and thin to match the thickness of our noodle, we're able to get all the ingredients on the fork simply by twirling, and we don't have to do a lot of extra stabbing. I mean, I'm happy to stab and twirl if I have to, but if I can mostly just twirl, I think that makes for a little nicer experience. Which is why this stuff is always such a big hit at any kind of cookout or picnic, especially when you put it next to one of those other pasta salads. Sorry, elbow macaroni tossed in mayo, you just got served. Twice. But anyway, whether you serve this as some warm weather affair to basically steal the show, or you make it in the dead of winter because it's just that good, either way, I really do hope you give this a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.